Hello, my name is Isaac. I'm out on a walk today in the woods, and I've been thinking about those habits that have been the most beneficial for my own life. Now, I pinpointed about four that I think have been the most beneficial. If I had to restart life, I would make sure that I did these four things in my life. I think that these things can be beneficial for anybody, including you. Now, the first of these things that I would look to, and I would really aim to focus on, and I suppose you call it a habit. I suppose you could call it just, I don't know exactly what you call it, maybe a habit, maybe a thing that you do, I suppose, or things that I've done that take a bit of consistency at least. Because I don't know if all of them can fall into the category of a habit, but the first thing that I would look at is getting into physical shape. Start exercising your body, start eating real healthy food. Now that doesn't mean that you always, every meal, have to eat healthy, but your body should run off of actual real food. Your body shouldn't be running off of Doritos. Like, you can eat Doritos, but that shouldn't be the fuel that energizes your body. You should eat actual real food. If your ancestors from the past came to you and they saw what you were eating and they wouldn't believe that that was actually food, it's probably not food that you should eat. So what should you eat? Well, you should eat actual stuff. You should eat meat. You know, red meat, beef, elk, if you have those options. You know, chicken, turkey, fish, all those kind of meats. You should eat eggs. You should eat ham. You should just eat actual real meat. You should eat real carbs. You should eat things like potatoes, maybe some good homemade sourdough bread. That can be a really good food. You should eat vegetables. I mean, eat vegetables, eat onions, eat garlic, eat spinach. Just go and eat some actual fruits and vegetables. Don't fuel your body off of just really cheap processed stuff all the time. That doesn't mean you don't ever eat it. You can eat a frozen burrito every once in a while, but it shouldn't be the main source of energy for your body. And the other thing that I'd say is get consistent in exercise. It doesn't necessarily have to be the gym, but that would be my starting point. If you're a man at least, and this is where my advice mainly aims to, is towards men, I would recommend that you go to the gym. I'm going to go back up this hill. I'm just going on a short little walk. But get in the gym. That would be my starting point for trying to build what Teddy Roosevelt might call the strenuous life. Start building up your body through physical weights and the reason I advocate weights for men is because there's just something good. I don't know, you feel strong, you feel powerful, and you start feeling more confident once you start training with weights. It won't be immediate. At first it's going to be really, really difficult and it's going to suck. But after some time, after you actually start building up some strength, you actually start building up some of that physical capability, you see your body start to change in the mirror and you start looking at a much bigger, stronger body and physique, you're going to start feeling way more confident in yourself. And that's just going to have massive benefits overall. It's really pretty out here. I mean, I'm not super deep back in the woods like when I'm hunting. I'm just doing a short walk, trying to get some fresh air, trying to enjoy myself. I've been watching the kids. My wife has been in surgery, or she was in surgery, so I'm taking care of her right now, taking care of all the kids. So this is really my excuse to get 15 minutes outside and enjoy myself. Just get some fresh air out in nature. Luckily, we live out in the woods, so, I mean, just walk out the front door and you got a nice walk to go on. See the beautiful trees. Now, the second habit that I'd start trying to build up, second thing that I'd do if you want to change your life, is I would start actually reading books. Start reading books and start studying. Start being an active learner. You should pursue knowledge all of your life. Knowledge shouldn't be something that ends in the schoolroom. You shouldn't go to school, listen to 1/100th of what your teacher says, because let's be honest, most of us didn't listen in school. I didn't. Most of what I've learned was from reading books, from studying educational videos, watching lectures and things like this on topics that you're interested in. So go and read books on topics that you have interest in. And just read all sorts of genres. Read everything. Don't get yourself stuck in one genre. That's something that I did when I started reading books. Is I only would read, and I was kind of younger at that time. And I was kind of in maybe what you would call, I don't know, a little bit of an edgy sort of phase, funny enough. And all I would read was old Victorian era horror novels and Stephen King and things like that. I really liked horror novels, and I still like those books, but I exclusively read that. And I don't know why, but I was just like, I'm not going to read anything else. But one of those things that really changed my life was when I started reading other novels too, because I got myself stuck in that genre for maybe 6 months. And it was like a breath of fresh air. Not that I still don't enjoy those novels, but when I read an adventure novel, actually what I read, I was really sick. And I decided I'm going to read Robin Hood. I think it was the Howard Pyle edition of the stories of Robin Hood. And those books are just so funny. And they're just so exciting. And I was so sick. And as I slowly mended in health, and as I was reading those books, I just was invigorated. That's what I realized. I shouldn't be stuck reading one genre. Hopefully the wind isn't too loud. But I should be reading all sorts of genres. I mean, I should be reading genres of every single kind. So don't get stuck in reading one genre, but read what you enjoy. And if you don't like a certain genre, or you don't like a certain book, that doesn't mean you won't always not like that genre or not like that book. You may not have found the right book in that genre, or your reading level might not be mature enough for that book, or you might not be in the right place at the right time for that book. Because one of those amazing things is that you can read a book that at one point in your life you just think is dreadful, and then later in your life you read it and it's wonderful. It's like the best book you've ever read. And sometimes the opposite happens. Sometimes you read a book and you just love that book. You think, this is the best book I've ever read. But then you come back and read it sometime later and it just doesn't hit the nerve that it did at that point. Because it's just not the right time. That doesn't mean it isn't a great book. But it just means for some reason or another, that book wasn't calling to you at that time. Another thing about reading is that you don't have to read every single page of every single type of book. You can just pick up a book and you can read a chapter, especially if it's a topical book, or a book that is more philosophical or scientific, or it's covering certain subjects instead of a story. It's a little bit more difficult if you're reading stories. But if you're simply looking at a book, you don't have to read it cover to cover necessarily, depending on what the type of book is. There's a lot of books that you can just go and you can read one chapter in one sitting because that chapter specifically sounds interesting to you at that moment. But that would be my next advice. Read books because it will broaden your mind. You'll start to see the world in a way that you didn't see it before. I mean, the way that I view the world is completely tied to, I suppose, the philosophical worldview that's been imposed on me by books. Because, I mean, my entire worldview has shifted from certain books that I've read. There's been a handful. And sometimes they're odd books. Like one of the books that really changed how I viewed the world was the autobiography of Theodore Roosevelt. I mean, that's a wonderful book. And that book, when I read it, I mean, it completely shifted how I understood how life could be. It made me think about how exciting life can be if you pursue adventure. That would be something I would look at. Read books. My third piece of advice, and I'll keep this pretty short, is don't be stupid with money. What I mean by that is you should learn, sorry, I don't know if it paused there, but you should learn how to use money and not be a slave to it. That doesn't mean you have to be rich. That doesn't mean you have to be greedy. That doesn't mean that you have to become, I don't know, some entrepreneur or something. You can if that's something that you want to pursue. Ingenuity and industry is very important, but that doesn't mean that that's what you have to do. But no matter what you're called to do, be a wise steward of what God has given you. What God has given you, use it wisely. Use it to grow. Use it so that you can give some to charity. And just use money wisely. Money is a tool. You shouldn't be enslaved to it. You shouldn't be buying stuff on debt, especially stupid stuff like a pizza. You shouldn't spend $200 on interest payments on a pizza that you bought 30 years ago. You need to be smart enough to handle money, because money is very powerful and is very dangerous. It can be very corrupting, but you need to learn how to use money. So that would be my next thing, is just learn how to be wise with money, learn how to wield money. Now, the last point that I would advocate for, and the last thing that I would look at, is Jesus. Now, I'm going to preach to you for a minute, so if that's going to offend you, I guess you can click off. But Jesus will change your life, and he will move your life in a better direction. He will make you a better man. I promise you that. If you follow his teachings, and you follow his way of living, and you follow the scriptures in the Bible. If you've never read the Bible, pick it up and read it, okay? I can't scientifically prove to you that Jesus turned water into wine. I believe he did. But I can't prove to you in a way that's irrefutable that Jesus turned water into wine. But what I can tell you is that Jesus in my own life turned darkness into light. He turned sorrow into hope. And he can do the same thing in your life. I promise you, he can change your life. I think that's all that I've been thinking about today. If you've watched this far, thank you. Hopefully the audio's decent. I know that I'm walking. I put these earphones on, so hopefully the microphone's decent. But yeah, God bless you. Have a good day.